Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Build St. Louis, the construction industry podcast that is capturing and sharing the very heartbeat of the industry. And I'm your host, Kerry Smith Buck, owner of CNR, or Construction News and Review. And if you have ever wondered about all the particular safety precautions that take place daily on construction sites, but particularly in times of heat, as we're experiencing lately. We are in for a real treat today because we're going to talk to two experts who are with an organization known as Southern Illinois Builders Association. With us today as our guests, our CEO, Donna Richter, who has been at the helm of SIBA, as we call it, since 2015. And we're also accompanied today by John Holt, and he has been the safety director at Southern Illinois Builders Association, just making and celebrating the 10-year mark. He began in June of 2014. And Donna and John, we are delighted to have you with us today. Welcome to Build St. Louis.
Thanks, Kerry.
Thank you, Kerry. We appreciate you inviting us.
My pleasure. And I know our readers, our listeners will learn much from you today. We're going to tackle a couple different topics, but initially what we'd really like to focus on, I know I've read several OSHA articles this week on this in particular, but on heat stress. And I know that construction is not a simple or risk-free environment anyway, but when you add in close to triple digits into the equation, that's got to bring a lot of concerns. And I know SIBA's at the forefront of confronting those and managing those and educating safety directors and workers so that what they're doing, particularly in the summer months, that they are as safe and protected as possible. And I would love to just talk with you all about that today. John, is this something that you encounter quite a bit in terms of job sites that you visit or education talks that you present?
Yes, really this time of year, it's not a new issue. We've been dealing with the heat in the Midwest forever, so it's a ongoing issue, but it seems like the last couple of years we've just gone straight from spring and mild spring into a very hot summer, and it looks like this year is going to be the same. So it makes it even more important because the workers are not really getting, their bodies aren't getting a chance, I guess I should say, to properly acclimatize to the elements out there. It's going right from being mild to just a brutal heat wave. So it's really more important in those situations that they're taking the time to properly hydrate and prepare themselves.
I can only imagine. And it's probably to us, maybe inside as we're talking today, it's logical just as we sit at our desks to hydrate and to take care of ourselves. But when you're out there pressed on an accelerated schedule or your mind is focused on safety in general and on the task at hand, I bet that's something that really has to be a priority to keep at the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I always try to really push and educate is the water intake and making sure we're getting electrolytes and things like that. When you tell the workers how much they're actually supposed to be drinking, their first comment usually is, if I'm drinking that much, I'm never going to be out of the bathroom, because they don't really realize how much they're actually losing in sweat when it's that hot outside. Sometimes it's hard to get that point across, but it's definitely
Tell us,
important.
maybe give us an idea, because I know we've heard some what seems crazy to us sometimes. If your weight is this, you should be taking this many ounces in. What's the formula for workers out at a job site in extreme heat conditions? How much are they supposed to be drinking in terms of water?
For the average worker, it's said that you're supposed to drink roughly about a 16.9 ounce bottle of water an hour when they're working in these extreme heat conditions. But obviously, that's going to vary based on the person. You've got some folks out there that, I hate to say this, but look like you dumped a 5-gallon bucket of water on them after they worked for 5 minutes, and you got others that barely break a sweat. So it really is going to vary based on that individual. So we're going to have to approach that on an individual basis and know the people a little bit, maybe push those that are heavy sweaters to be even drinking a little bit more. But really, to me, the important thing is that they know that they shouldn't wait till they get to work to start drinking when it's like this. They need to be drinking water as soon as they wake up. If they wait till they're getting thirsty, if they wait till they get to work, they're already behind. But also just focusing on the fact of, oh, I hate to say it, but looking at behaviors outside of work, avoiding alcoholic beverages, avoiding a lot of caffeine. I know that's hard. I'm a big coffee drinker myself. It's sometimes hard to avoid that, but those are diuretics, meaning it's going to flush you out. So you're working against yourself when you're intaking all that. So really pushing the notion on that and letting them know, hey, we need to try to avoid these things. And then there's simple things too, like just wearing light colored clothing that's not going to draw heat, just basic stuff. And there is a world of different things out there now that you can get. Cooling rags, they make vests with cooling packs you can get to put in them, just all kinds of stuff. I didn't want to talk too much about hard hats on this aspect of it, but there's actually a battery powered fan that you can get in a hard hat that cools them that way. Its possibilities are endless out there depending on your budget and which direction you want to take it.
It's fantastic to know that all those additional resources are there. Donna, has Southern Illinois Builders Association always had a real priority in education on extreme heat prevention and probably in just extreme cold climates as well? Has that been something that's always been a pillar in terms of education?
Sure, we have our safety director go out to the job sites for the contractors and do a simple 10-15 minute toolbox talk on either heat exposure, frostbite, just to make the workers aware of some of the signs and symptoms, and also to give them some tips on how to avoid somebody passing out because they've been in the heat too long. Or so SIBA has always felt that the workers are our future, and we want to make sure that they're kept safe and do what we can to help. There was a period there that we were handing out cold water when John would go out to do toolbox talks on the job site, just as a way to, hey, here's something for you guys to drink, make sure you drink. So we try to do many different things just to raise the awareness and to help our members make sure that their workers go home at night to their families.
John, you mentioned electrolytes, and I wondered if you could touch on that. Maybe it's not just drinking pure water on the
Not
job
just
sites,
drinking
or
pure water because you're losing your body's natural salts and stuff through your sweat. So you got to replenish that with electrolytes. There's so many different varieties now that you can get. A lot of the guys out there are talking about one now called Liquid IV that's pretty popular. That's a little bit pricier, honestly. And then there's a bunch of other ones that are just different powders and stuff that you can purchase and simply just pour in a bottle of water and shake it up just like you would any of these little powdered drink mixes to replenish the electrolytes. And then there's Gatorade, Powerade, these different sports drinks have been around for many years. The only issue with them is you do have to watch that sugar on them because a lot of them are very sugary. So you got to pay attention to that as well. And they make lighter versions of them too. And that's one thing I always try to tell the workers out there, hey, if you're going to drink these sports drinks, just look at the sugar content. They make some that are a little less sugar than others. So try to focus on getting one that doesn't have as much sugar, even though it might not taste quite as good. When you're out there and it's hot, anything cool usually tastes pretty good. So it's usually not a big deal, but
let me ask you on the construction companies themselves, I'm sure it varies by contractor, but when extreme heat conditions persist, do they supply the drinks in coolers? Do they make them so it's top of mind because they're right there at the job site? Or is it generally like the worker that's responsible for? And like I said, that may vary between companies.
And Kerry too, in a lot of the collective bargaining agreements, it states in there that the contractor will furnish water. And so you'll see on the job sites, those orange, I don't know what the thermos, huge things full of water, and then they usually put ice in them. That's part of the collective bargaining agreement. I am sure that they all do that. And if just out of pure common sense, they should do that when it's 100-degree weather. You can't expect workers to be out there working and not have something for them to drink.
yeah, to Donna's point too, and after in the midst of COVID and somewhat post COVID now, I guess we could say a lot of them have moved more towards just having cases of water versus the cooler because they don't want, because there's been cases of, you would be amazed at what some of these people will do sometimes and put their own thing down in the cooler cold water to get it chilled and stuff like that. And then you got people dipping their hands in there, and it's a sanitary issue. Yeah, you see a lot of cases of bottled water out there now, and it varies on the contractor's side because some of them will go above and beyond. Some of them will be out there with Gatorade. Some of them will pass out those powders I was talking about. Some of them will even have little electrolyte popsicles and stuff they'll bring out there and pass out. Those are usually pretty popular. The
Oh,
guys and gals out there goes a whole lot.
that's awesome. In terms of maybe coworkers identifying symptoms that someone is dehydrated, or what would you have a 2 or 3 tips for anyone from a project manager visiting a site to an owner to a fellow worker? What should they look for maybe as a cautionary signal that someone really is headed in the wrong direction?
One thing would just be a more slowed response time or maybe a lack of judgment. If someone is complaining of cramps, that to me would be a very telltale sign that their body's locking up due to being dehydrated. If their vision is changed, a kind of a foggy or clouded vision, if you touch their skin and they're complaining of any of these issues and they've got just cool, clammy skin and they're sweating really excessively, that's a surefire sign of heat exhaustion. That would be a indicator to me. I need to get this person to some shade. I need to try to get them cooled off in a timely manner and in a safe manner. You don't want to cool them off. I know sounds contradictory, but you don't want to cool them off too quick because you don't want to send them into shock. But at the same time, you need to get that body temperature regulated.
I appreciate you sharing those signs, because some of us that maybe we don't typically work construction, but if we're out on a site or a project engineer or someone who's normally in an administrative position, I think it's good for all of us to know what to look for sure.
Yeah, another
Sure.
thing, just to add to that, Carrie, would just be like if they're feeling chilled and it's hot outside, if you're like getting chills, that's definitely a sign of heat exhaustion.
Do you have any statistics or any data that would lead to it, how present fatigue or work zone heat stroke and heat exhaustion really are? And it's okay if you don't have any numbers at the top of your head, but I thought I'd just ask and see if it is more prevalent than we may realize.
We actually do have some numbers for you. I just pulled some CDC numbers because they're the ones that do all this wonderful research. And in a span from 92 to 2016, there was 285 construction deaths related to heat. In that amount of time, it accounted for a third of all occupational heat deaths, even though construction's only 6% of the workforce. It gives you some perspective about how much of an issue it is.
Definitely. Tell us that again. So that kind of, I heard it, but tell us again,
Yeah,
because
so
that's pretty significant.
285 deaths from 1992 to 2016 just from the heat, accounting for a third of all occupational heat deaths in that time, which construction for that time period was only 6% of our overall workforce.
Wow. That really hammers it home, doesn't it? Donna, did you have a thought? I see you nodding.
We got to really think, we have a lot of highway contractors that work out on the highways, on the asphalt, 100-degree weather. Think about how hot that is for them. So it's really something that I know our contractor members are aware of. But unfortunately, that's when you have to do the work. You got to do the work when the weather is conducive to that. In the summer, they work all the time unless it's raining. Now, in the winter, when it's cold, they can't be out there pouring concrete and doing some of those surfaces when it's below 32 degrees. There's just a lot of factors that come into play here, but I think in the summertime when you're working out on asphalt, it makes it that much more riskier. And so again, we just try to raise awareness with our contractors.
We've been talking today with Donna Richter, who is Chief Executive Officer of the Southern Illinois Builders Association, SIBA, and with John Holt, who for 10 years this month has been the Safety Director for Southern Illinois Builders Association. And appreciate your statistics and your tips and just the awareness factor that both of you have shared in this episode, Donna and John. And hopefully all of us listening will have our eyes and ears open to make sure if we see a worker in fatigue that we're able to tell someone and to keep people that are building our legacies in and around St. Louis and Missouri and Illinois, keep them safe as they work on projects in extreme heat. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Kerry. We appreciate it.